Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the Mighty Jingles. Today's battle, Tier 10 standard battle here on the highway map, is a double action perspective, told from the viewpoint of the two scouts on the team. The first, in the British Tier 10 light tank, the Manticore, is Kronster here, and the second, in the French Tier 10 light tank, the AMX 13105, is GR Veteranos. Two tanks that superficially seem very similar. They're both very small, very fast, very stealthy. They both have oscillating turrets and they both have 105mm guns. But they do actually both play very, very differently. Due to the French AMX having an auto-loading 105mm gun with a 3-shot magazine, it's actually more suitable for very aggressive, active scouting. The Manticore, on the other hand, has a more traditional 105mm gun with a very, very slow reload, making it more suited for the old passive scouting, sitting in a bush and waiting to see what it can see. Which is ironic because both of these tanks are going to be doing exactly the opposite, with Veteranos here in the AMX 13105 taking the more passive spotting role, while Kronster in the Manticore is going to be doing almost exactly the opposite, although not initially. At the start, he's quite content to just sit in the bush and observe, doing the whole passive spotting thing. But then his hand gets forced, very, very early on. And yep, it's an EBR 105. Both teams have one. And these things utterly dominate the active spotting game in World of Tanks and have done ever since they were introduced. Almost making light tanks redundant. Because they are just better at everything that a light tank can do, with the exception of passive spotting, sitting in a bush and observing, because they have a more limited view range. But everything else that a light tank can do, an armoured car like an EBR can do better, with that one very narrow exception. Due to their absurd survivability, they're also substantially easier to play. A light tank, for example, would never have been able to pull this off. It would have been tracked, immobilised, and killed in the open long before it got anywhere near friendly artillery. Admittedly, the EBR didn't survive it. It is dead, but the point is that a light tank trying that kind of move right at the start of the battle wouldn't have made it halfway across the field before being destroyed. Meanwhile, Veteranos has been having some success at the hands of the enemy Batchat 25T, which is a medium tank that handles and plays like a light tank, and at the moment is handling and playing exactly like a light tank that gets spotted in the open because it, well, effectively has light tank armour. And it's a bigger target and easier to hit. And unlike an EBR 105, it doesn't have magical, mysterious 122mm armour-piercing, shell-absorbing tyres. Honestly, I don't know why. Tank engineers didn't just start building their tanks out of whatever rubber was used to make the wheels on the EBR 105. Because that stuff just shrugs off anti-tank armour-piercing ammunition like water off a duck's back. You know, there's a saying in World of Tanks. Well, actually, there might not be. I keep saying it. I don't know whether or not anybody repeats it. The team with the last EVR alive is the team that wins. Because these things are just so brain-dead powerful. And yet in this battle, both EVRs are doing their level best to get themselves killed very, very early on. And in fact, both have succeeded. Although Veteranos' team's EVR was the last one left alive, so we'll see if the prediction holds true. The enemy Manticore there, the only reason he's still alive is because Veteranos had to go for a reload right before killing him. Moving up to the next bush. Note that Veteranos has not actually done any spotting from here. Well, perhaps he has, but nobody's been shooting at anything that he's spotted. He actually only has 43 spotting damage, not more than 2,000 direct damage done. But anything that he has spotted, in parenthesis, is either stuff that it wasn't actually him who spotted, or nobody else was in a position to shoot at. Meanwhile, with the middle of the field more or less secure, although there is that unspotted Manticore hiding under the bridge in the river, but Kronster has noticed a deficiency up there to the northwestern corner where he has a bunch of teammates that could sorely use a fresh pair of eyes. And from up here he should also be able to spot any moves that that Manticore makes. So he's moving up to see what he can see for his teammates. Also note that, well, despite Veteranos camping in a bush and yet getting no spotting and thousands of direct damage, the exact opposite has been happening here to Kronster, who has been doing the opposite of sitting in a bush the entire battle and has gotten spotted, and this is really, really bad. That's going to be the enemy Manticore. Or actually, is it going to be bad? Maybe not. Because under this ridge here, the only thing that actually has a direct line of fire on him, and probably isn't going to have it for much longer as he tucks into this gully, is going to be the enemy Manticore itself. And there we go. That's what he came over here for. Those are the targets he came over here to spot. Forcing them back as his teammates, and he's being extremely brave. But, you know, a light tank's got to do what a light tank's got to do. I mean, I did say at the beginning of the battle that the Manticore is, due to the slow-firing nature of its 105mm gun, is more suited to sitting in a bush and doing the passive spotting thing. Leaping out and attacking only when the enemies are of sufficiently low hit point totals that the 105mm gun can take them out in one shot, or they're otherwise occupied and unable to get a shot off at the Manticore when it dives out of cover. And the AMX 105 is better at doing that sort of thing because it's not limited to just one shot because it has an autoloader. Yet, each tank can do the other role, as we're quite clearly seeing here. Certainly the active spotting role is paying off very, very well for Kronster here. He's now up to more than 5,000 spot and damage with less than 1,000 done of his own. The exact opposite of what's been happening to Veteranos in the AMX 105. They've got some really big guns defending the enemy base on the ridgeline up here. There's a Death Star, there's an Object 268, there's the E3 here. They did have a ship bomb, but it's been killed. Kronster does have some teammates who've moved up to support him, but I don't know if they've got the firepower to take these guys on from the front, especially since they are likely to have some support fire from the flank, the location of the city over there, that the enemy team do control. Certainly artillery are trying. But I'm not convinced that going over the top of this ridge is a great idea for the medium tanks that are with him. Also, that TVP poking over the top of his tank like that to get a shot at the E3. Could you please not? Because if the TVP were to get spotted, obviously the E3 is going to aim as low as possible. And the shot is just going to hit Kronster. Okay, the TVP's bugging off. Thank you. We've got a decent shot there. He will get spotted, however, and there's no real guarantee of penetration. I mean, it is a T110 E3. His teammates have very wisely decided that against guns like that, it's probably not a great idea to rush the ridge in medium tanks. Oh, and he's gotten spotted. Time to relocate. I don't know if that's the enemy Manticore, which is still alive, spotting him, or possibly it might be the enemy Leopard, because the Object 140 that was up here with them has been knocked out, and it wasn't by any of the tank destroyers on the top of the ridge. It was blanking fire from the enemy Leopard 1, so he may also have line of fire, in which case that is now a very, very bad place to be. In fact, right as Kronster was bugging out, oh, and he has just gotten spotted. That's not good. We'll soon find out if it's the Manticore or the Leopard 1. But you can see the friendly TVP was turning around, pointing his gun back this way. He'd clearly been getting shot at from this time. Oh, shit. Did he just bounce a shot? Gold ammo, no less. From the L1 105mm gun of the Leopard? Yes, he did. And he's not even in an EBR 105. It's clearly the enemy Manticore who was doing the spotting here. He's equally clearly bugged out. Either because he knows what's good for him, or because his job is done. The two mediums on the ridge underneath the enemy base have been destroyed. In fact, most of the team have been destroyed. The whole team are now 4 kills behind, and those tank destroyers on the ridge line are now advancing across the field, which means it's time for Kronster to turn around and go back the way he came. Although perhaps not across the middle of the field, since he was clearly getting spotted and shot at by certain medium tanks, like, for example, and not limited to, the Leopard 1. So a slightly more circumspect and cautious return route would definitely be recommended. He still doesn't know where that Manticore is. He's absolutely 100% going to outspot the tank destroyers that were camping the ridge to the west of their base. But the enemy Manticore, I mean, technically, they should both have the same view range, the same visibility, but one of them could be hiding in a bush waiting to see the other one making the return trip. So, caution. He was very lucky to not get crippled and killed, and there it is! And he's spotted, so there's absolutely no harm in taking the shot, and that is an exceptionally valuable kill because it means the enemy team are now scout free. Cranster did take a couple of hits there, and yes, they were both gold ammo, but whatever. He's safe. It was worth it. Meanwhile, Veteranos, still in the same spot, and now up to more than 3,000 direct damage, and with 1,100 actual spotting damage, and arguably, while definitely doing a less dramatic job, doing an equally important one, because he's the only one providing eyes for all the tank destroyers in the base. He's also the only one with the opportunity to get any flanking shots on anybody on the enemy team attempting to cross the field. Which is nice. Even though, I don't know if you noticed, it wasn't actually him who got the kill.
Enemy vehicle destroyed.
Although as the enemy team all take it in turns to limp across the open ground in the middle there, one at a time, in their big, obvious, stupid tank destroyers. Let's just say there's plenty more opportunities for Veteranos here to start evening the odds a little. And of course, because he's in an AMX-13, and this thing realistically shouldn't even be big enough to mount a 105mm gun on a turret ring that size, much less the 105mm ammo that would make it actually useful in a fight, he is of course now out of regular ammo and is now forced to use his high explosive anti-tank gold. Meanwhile, the enemy team, who were ahead by 4 kills and who are now ahead by just the 1, continue with the Melchett plan. Everybody advance slowly across the open field, one at a time, to give the enemy the opportunity to mass all of their guns against us. Now I know it didn't work the first 3 times, but they'll never expect us to try it again. This time it's the enemy Leopard. That's the genius of the Melchett plan, you see. They'd never expect us to try it 4 times in a row since it so abjectly failed the first 3 times. And to be fair to the Leopard, it almost looks like he's gotten away with it. Unfortunately, Veteranos just expended an entire magazine fruitlessly against him, but the E3 does manage to get the kill. And now, for, well, the first time since the start of the battle, both teams are on 10 kills. And they also have more or less exactly the same amount of hit points remaining. But one team has 2 scouts, and the other do not. So what's Cranster been up to for the last minute or so? Well, spotting leopards mostly. But now he's having a go at spotting the T-57 heavy. Oh, good job. Taken out by the E3, who's having a bit of a late game resurgence here, mostly thanks to the team's 2 light tanks. Now there was a pattern over here on the flank, and that thing has very, very good view range. So Cranster's going to have to be extremely careful here. Hasn't been spotted. Of course, remember, when Sixth Sense goes off, it's already 3 seconds too late. Oh, there's the pattern. He obviously knows he's been spotted, digging in behind the house there. They do still have the 1 artillery, the Object 261. Although he's not necessarily looking in this start. No, he was. Good stuff. I mean, it wasn't enough to kill him. But a big gun has now arrived to deter the pattern. And while all this has been going on, Veteranos has been getting his groove on. At more or less the exact point where the T-57 Heavy got spotted, and very shortly after got its turret popped, there it is. I mean, Veteranos has the shot, and in fact took the shot, but, well, you know, it's a T-57 Heavy. And he got spotted, and he got shot at. And honestly, with the T-57 Heavy spotted and now killed in the open, that means there should no longer be anybody else in the city. So it's time to go. Plus, he needs to do something while the gun's reloading anyway. And the AMX-13-105 is nothing, if not fast. So he's hugging the back of the map border here. Get the maximum possible amount of buildings and scenery and structures obscuring line of sight between him and anybody else who might be in a position to spot him making an end run on the enemy base here. So far, unspotted. Also, hasn't actually seen anything. This is both good and bad news. It's bad news because he doesn't know where the Object 268 is, although it's likely to be in the base. It's good news because, well, he's just spotted one artillery and he saw some tracer from the other one. And of course there is nobody shooting back at him. There goes the Geschützwagen E100. Good news, Object 268 spotted. Even better news, not in a position to shoot back at him, and it looks like he's falling back to defend his base. Possibly be able to respot him here and maybe get some flanking shots in. I need to back up though. Only 2 minutes left. They've still got to get 3 kills here, and the 268 is a tough customer. Gun reloaded. Just in time to get the 2 shots off, but he's not going to get a third. The 268, still an extremely tough customer with an extremely dangerous gun, now safe back in its base. Meanwhile, as Kronster, who is also out of regular ammo, is taking pot shots at the 268, the friendly Minotauro finishes off the pattern, leaving just the enemy. Well, it's a pair of objects, the 268 and the 261, and they're both ensconced within the base there, which we kind of knew because we can see the Object 268 heading back there, and Veteranos spotted the tracer from the Object 261. It's in the bushes up here, which of course is exactly why Kronster here is returning to the scene of the crime, seeing what he can see from the safety of the bushes, and well, he's gotten spotted in return, but he's done his job. Enemy artillery detected. Veteranos pushing up from the other side while he's reloading, because, I mean, why the hell not? You've got nothing better to do while you're reloading anyway. And he's got the perfect angle on the Object 268. A spot of surprise butt sex there for the Russian. Oh, and he even finished inside him. This video's so getting age restricted. And there's the Object 261. He knows he's never going to reload in time, but he can always go for the ram. Unfortunately, the AMX is a very, very light tank. And, well, it actually does more damage to him than it did to the 261. Kronster, however, has a much more permanent solution to the Object 261 problem. As Veteranos goes for the ram and Kronster goes for the reload. I mean, this gun might have a slow reload, but it's not as slow as the magazine reload on the AMX 13105. And his solution to the problem is a dose of 105mm APCR right to its big, fat, stupid Russian face. So with the collapse of the Melchett plan for the enemy team, that's victory. Huzzah for our 2 light tank friends. And hey, look, it's true what I said. The team with the longest surviving EBR 105 did in fact win. Admittedly, the sample size is a little on the small side, but hey, you can't argue with statistics. The numbers don't lie. Facts are facts. You heard it here first. Even more outrageously, despite they both being forced to switch to the use of gold ammunition at the end of the battle, they didn't even lose money on it. Although only just. And admittedly, it was just one of them. Which just goes to prove the other thing that I always say about World of Tanks, except which this time I know has caught on and other people are saying. If you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be playing it, especially not at tier 10. Anyway, congratulations to our 2 conquering light tank heroes, even though one of them is going to have to mortgage his house in order to be able to afford to enter the next battle. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.